Picture this. It's Sunday night. You just checked your banking app before bed, not because anything's wrong, just out of curiosity. And there it is. $42,000. More money than you've ever had in your life. And yet, you don't feel safe. You feel this strange, quiet unease you can't quite explain. Like you're waiting for something. A car repair, a layoff, a phone call you haven't gotten yet but somehow expect. If that sounds familiar, I need you to know something right now, before we go any further. That feeling isn't irrational. It isn't you being ungrateful, or paranoid, or bad with money. It's actually your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why a number in your bank account was never supposed to be the thing that made you feel okay. Because here's the real stakes of this video. The people who figure this out early don't just end up wealthier, they end up calmer. And the people who don't, they can have six figures sitting in savings and still lie awake at night feeling broke. This is the difference between those two people. Stay with me. Here's something almost nobody says out loud. Most of us were taught that money problems get solved by more money. Save more, earn more, hit a number, and the anxiety disappears. Nobody tells you that's only half true. Think about someone you know, maybe it's you, who got the raise. Finally crossed that income threshold they always said would change everything. And a year later, same stress, different zeros. That's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not a personal failure. It's a pattern. Psychologists have a name for it, hedonic adaptation. But forget the label for a second and just feel the truth of it. You adapt to comfort almost instantly. What used to feel like enough quietly becomes the baseline, and your brain starts scanning for the next thing to worry about. So if you've ever felt guilty for still being anxious even though your bank account looks fine on paper, I want you to let that guilt go right now. You're not broken. You were just never given the real rule book. And that's actually the most comment-worthy thing I could say to you today, because there's a good chance you already have a number in your head right now. When I hit this amount, I'll finally relax. Drop it in the comment. You are not the only one who's already hit that number and felt nothing change. You've probably heard this your whole life. Money in the bank equals security. It sounds so obvious that nobody ever questions it. But money sitting in a bank account isn't security. It's potential. And potential only becomes security once it has a job to do. Let me show you what I mean with something almost embarrassingly simple. Imagine two people, both with exactly $10,000 saved. Person one has no idea what that money is for. It's just there, a cushion, vague, undefined. Person two has that same $10,000 split with intention. 3 months of bare-bones expenses set aside for emergencies, a small amount earmarked for something they're excited about, and the rest quietly growing in something that outpaces inflation. Same amount of money, completely different emotional experience. Person one checks their balance and feels anxious, because deep down, undefined money always feels like it's about to disappear. Person two checks their balance and feels something closer to control. That's the part people miss. Money doesn't create peace of mind by existing. It creates peace of mind by having a purpose you trust. Quick pause here. If this is already making you rethink your own savings account, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find this. Drop a comment too. I read every single one. There's something else going on underneath all of this, and it's a little harder to talk about. A lot of us don't actually trust money to protect us, because somewhere along the way, we watched it fail to protect someone we loved. Maybe it was a parent who worked incredibly hard and still lived paycheck to paycheck. Maybe it was watching your family stress over a bill at the kitchen table when you were 12 years old, pretending to do your homework while actually listening to every word. You didn't choose that memory, but it shaped how your nervous system responds to money for the rest of your life. So when you have money now, actual money, more than your parents ever had, and you still feel scared, understand what's really happening. You're not reacting to your current bank balance. You're reacting to an old memory wearing a new number. Hi, my name is Alpha, and this is exactly the kind of thing we unpack here at Alpha Invest. Not just the math of money, but the psychology behind why it feels the way it does. This matters because you cannot financial literacy your way out of an emotional wound. You can have a perfect spreadsheet and still feel poor. Real security isn't only built with numbers. It's built by slowly teaching your nervous system that this time, the money is going to be there when you need it. Here's a number that puts all of this into perspective. If you save $100 a month and just let it sit in a regular checking account, in 20 years, you'll have $24,000. Not bad. But if that same $100 a month goes somewhere that grows, averaging even a modest long-term return, you're not looking at $24,000. You're looking at closer to $70,000 or $80,000, depending on the years and the returns. Same effort, same discipline, same $100, wildly different outcome. That gap right there, that's not luck, and it's not about being rich enough to invest properly. That gap is what happens when money is given direction instead of just being stored. Compound growth doesn't reward the amount you have, it rewards the amount of time your money is actually working, and it does not care how small you started. I'm not saying any of this as advice for your specific situation. You know your life better than any video ever could. I'm just showing you the shape of how money behaves over time, because once you see that shape, you stop looking at savings as the finish line. You start seeing it as the starting line. Now here's where this gets interesting, because I haven't told you the real reason money in the bank isn't enough. Everything so far has just been leading up to it. It's not about growth, it's not even about inflation quietly eating your savings while you sleep, although that's real too. It's this: money sitting still has no relationship with your future self. It's frozen, and your future self, the one paying rent in 15 years, the one who might want to take 6 months off to care for a parent, the one who might want to walk away from a job that's slowly hollowing them out, that person is depending on decisions you make today, not decisions you'll make eventually. That's the actual turning point. Security was never about the size of the number. It's about whether the money you have today is quietly working on behalf of the person you're going to become. Once that clicks, you stop asking, "How much should I save?" And you start asking a much better question: what is this money actually doing for my future? And that single shift in the question changes everything about how you use money for the rest of your life. I'm not going to tell you to cut out coffee or work 80-hour weeks or grind your way to freedom. That's not what this is. This is smaller, quieter, and honestly, a lot more sustainable than that. Start by naming your money. Every dollar sitting in your account without a job attached to it is a dollar quietly making you anxious. You don't need a complicated system. You just need to know, roughly, what each portion is for. Safety, growth, living your actual life. Then build your emergency fund like it's a wall, not a wish. 3 to 6 months of real, bare expenses. Not your whole lifestyle, just what keeps the lights on. That wall is what lets you take a risk later without panicking. After that wall exists, let the rest start working. It doesn't need to be dramatic or all at once. Small, consistent, boring contributions to something that grows over time will always outperform waiting for the perfect moment to start, because that moment doesn't actually exist. It never has. And maybe the most underrated step of all, check in with your money regularly, not out of fear, but out of respect. The way you'd check in on someone you care about. That habit alone rewires the anxious relationship into a steady one. None of this is extreme. None of this requires a 6-figure income. It just requires direction. So if you've got money saved and you still feel that quiet unease sometimes, I hope you can finally stop blaming yourself for it. You were never taught the real rule book. Most people weren't. Money in the bank was never supposed to be the finish line. It was only supposed to be the beginning of a relationship between you, your money, and the person you're slowly becoming. You don't need to fix this overnight. You don't need to have it all figured out by next week. Progress, even slow progress, quietly outperforms the pressure of trying to be perfect. That's not a cliché. That's just how this actually works. If this gave you even a little more clarity tonight, hit like, drop a comment telling me your "I thought this would fix everything" number, and subscribe, because next time, I'm going deeper into something that might sting a little more than this one did. Because there's a second reason your savings might still feel like they're slipping through your fingers. One most people never even think to look for. And that one's not about behavior at all. I'll see you in the next video.